Fighting Sail by Ryan Miller, part of the Osprey Blue Book series. Sorry about the glare. We may be a little bit backlit today because it's getting late in the season and we're without power here where I'm filming. Don't let that sweat you. Napoleonic fleet actions, except today, it's not fleet actions. It's only frigates. Subscribe to my Only Frigates for exclusive content. What you're looking at are two fifth-rate ships. This one is an American ship. We are going to call that the USS Diabetes. USS Diabetes does not have any special abilities. It's got sailing of 6. They both have sailing of 6. But the British ship over here, hey, let's call it the War of 1812. The Brits are looking to burn a house, and they're hoping it's a white one. Also has a sailing of 6, but the captain of this ship is a navigator, so they're going to re-roll 1s on the sailing dice. The HMS Bad Teeth has a discipline of 5 versus discipline of 6 over here. We've got a boarding skill of 3 for the British, 4 for the Americans, and gunnery of 4 for the British with a gunnery of 5 for the Americans. So a lot of advantages for the Americans. They're a 29-point vessel. This is a 28-point vessel with the captain's special ability. They both have a hull of 3, and we are going to fight until the hull is reduced to 0. And then we'll call it striking the colors, and the battle is over. This battle takes place out in the wild blue ocean. Let's look at the terrain. Terrain, I hear you say. It's the open ocean. What kind of terrain could we have? Well, we could have fog, and we could have rain squalls. The darker templates that say rain on them are, of course, the rain squalls. And flipping open the book to the right page to check and see what the terrain effects are. Let's just go ahead and quote chapter and verse. Make sure that we get it right. Sometimes we do that. Fog. If the ship's base is partially in the fog, it can only shoot or be targeted at medium or short range. If the ship's entire base is in the fog, it can only shoot or be targeted at short range. You cannot shoot through the fog. Unless the ship is partially in the fog. There, let's illustrate. He cannot be targeted from over here. If he's partially in the fog, regardless of the direction, you can't shoot him at long range. If he's in the fog, you can't shoot him at medium or long range, nor can he fire back at you. The rain does the exact same thing, except moving into or starting your turn partially or entirely within the rain squall earns you an anchor token if you don't already have one. If you have one, I don't think it does anything. Let's see. Squalls. Ship moves into, starts to move, gets an anchor token, unless it had one. Otherwise, yep, just like fog. So there's your terrain. And to figure out where these are going to go, I'm going to go ahead and just toss them out there. And I'll try to kind of mix them up and spread them around a little bit. We're going to figure out what direction the... And this one I'm going to try to flip a little, because I don't know which way. There you go. So we've got 3 squalls, 3 fog. And here is our compass rose. The fleur-de-lis tells us which direction the wind is blowing, and we'll spin her like so, and the wind is blowing in that direction. To the southwest. The next question will be, what direction does the British ship start in? On a result of, we're going to do, we'll start at the north. 1, 2, it's in the corner. 3, it's to the east. 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 will be up in that corner. The Americans will start opposite. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The British are going to start all the way upwind in this corner. I'm just going to stick them right there. The Americans have the weather gauge. And one of the other things to be aware of is that these terrain items will move. At the start of every single turn, I am going to roll a d6. Tell you what, we'll do every turn after the first. I'm going to roll a d6, and they will move in the direction the wind is blowing. If I get a 1, then we're going to check to see if the wind shifts. Or if we go to calm, if we go to gale. On a gale force wind, it's going to blow all of this out of here. Both ships are going to make a sailing roll. We'll use the white dice for the white sails, and we'll use the yellow dice for the black sails. Because the British ship starts in irons, they are only going to get a success on a d6. That d6 means, so the wind is blowing directly into their head, and they want to get themselves close haul. So they're going to start by moving 2 inches dead ahead, like so, and turning like this. I think that gets them into the range of close hauled. That's all they're going to be able to do. Now, for their part, the Americans are sailing, using our handy-dandy little chart. They are running with the wind, so they get sailing points on a 5-up. In a frigate duel, you spend point for point. He used his 1 point, then the Americans use a point. Now the British, if they had any more points, they would spend those, but they don't. So now it's up to the Americans to spend all 5 of their points moving right along. And they're going to, because they have all the advantages, I think we just go ahead and race, seeing which way they're going. The Americans could do whatever they want. I think we just go ahead and race 10 inches along to right there. And as you can see, we are still further than 18 inches away, so there's not going to be any cannon fire. That's the end of the turn. We will check our weather. And like I said, this will be the number of inches our terrain pieces move to the southwest, unless it's a 1. Hey, look at that. Gotta grab my book, because that means the weather has changed. And we'll roll a d6 to find out how. And on a result of a 4 for the weather, flipping to the page, special ordnance, where's weather? On a 4, the wind changes 1 point to the counterclockwise. Boop. Now the wind is due south. That will change our sailing rolls. Not only that, but we're going to roll to see how far all of this terrain moves. 2. So 2 inches, everything is going to move 2 inches due south. Here, and I'll just pick a point and move 2 inches. Pick a point, move it 2 inches. Over here, the question is, that rain squall stops just short of the British vessel. Now we move on to rolling for sailing points, and we got to double check. The wind is now coming off of the Americans' starboard quarter, so we bring this over. The wind is going to be, they're going to be reaching now. That could be good for them. For the British, we got to come over here, and with the wind coming due off, they're going to be close-hauled still. So the British are going to be scoring points, I need that 6 die, on 5s and 6s. So they get a total of 2 points, and oh, guess what I forgot? They get to re-roll the 1s, and it didn't do them any good this time. For their part, the Americans are going to be scoring successes on a 4 or higher. They get a total of 1, 2, 3, 4 sailing points. And the British get 2. The British are still, with the change, who is furthest downwind, that's still going to be the British. So the British have to spend 1 of their points, and they're going to spend a point to move 2 inches up. Wait, do we want to go back to back? We're going to turn them up to take advantage of this fog bank, move them up like that, and then I think they are turning into the wind. Do we want to send them in irons, or do we want to kind of skirt the battlefield down here? I think that's probably the better bet, is to bring them so they are just barely now reaching, so they're going to have a lot more flexibility on the next turn. Although I should point out, they make the first move, and they will end facing this way. Then the Americans get to spend their point, 1 of their points, and the Americans will play it conservative, and they'll move forward 2 inches, and then they complete. If you're playing with a friend, this is how you would do it. So you can do a little bit of bluffing. Well, I'm going to move here. Let's see what you do. Okay, maybe he'll do something different. But again, because the Americans have the advantage here, they're just going to say, yeah, you know what? I still have 4 more points to spend. They can move up to here, and the fog bank now, we measure center mass to center mass, there's still no cannon fire. I guess they can kind of make out the hazy difference, but our boys are done with the turn. Let's roll for weather. How many inches does the stuff move? Another 2 inches. And the good news again for the British is that they are not going to get caught by that squall. I'm not going to worry too much about a little bit of wiggle in our terrain pieces. But you can see now how that terrain moving around and anticipating how far it's going to go, that might change the plans for our American sailors. Still 6 sailing dice to 6 sailing dice. I'll roll nearby so we can see. We get to re-roll this 1. And as I said, the British, because the wind is due south, the British are now reaching, and they get successes on a 4-up. So they get a total of 4 successes. The Americans are also, well, let's take a look. The Americans are reaching as well. So they will get 4 sailing points. But because the British are still furthest downwind, they have to go first. So the British say, yeah, you know what? Let's go ahead and bring ourselves 2 inches, and we'll just kind of turn so we're just barely, if I don't like to keep them parallel because it makes it complicated. They're just barely headed at an angle here, approaching this side of the battlefield. Now the Americans have to decide what they're going to do. Are they going to swing around and try to get ahead of them? Try to cross the T and swing around this way? I think maybe that's the best bet for these guys. Now, because the wind is on their starboard quarter, once they move up to here, they can turn a total of 90 degrees. We're going to leave them just like that for now, though. So that's 1 point for each of these guys. We'll take the dice away to remind us of how many points we've got. And the British now are going to be moving 2 inches forward. The Americans will move 2 inches forward. That's the second sailing point. The British will move 2 inches forward, so back to that point. And then the Americans, now we may have a collision. We may actually have a boarding action. The Americans can move 2 inches to here, and the British, for their last sailing point, are going to, now, because this is their last sailing point, they can only turn 30 degrees like so. And it puts them close hauled. But it forces the Americans to decide, what are they going to do here? On further review, the British don't have any choice. They are going to have to spin 90 degrees. It's really the only way to prevent these guys from completely crossing their T and giving them a full-blown broadside. Now, because they're turning with the wind pushing them, it only costs 1 point to make that 90-degree turn. Then what are you going to do, Mr. Yanks? And I think our Yanks are going to go ahead and, now they're turning into the wind. So the best they can do, if we line this up, they can move this far forward, and then they can turn, but it's going to be broadside on broadside, and man, look how close we are to the table edge. This could get ugly. It's a gunnery duel. Gunnery is simultaneous. I'm going to roll because we are at extreme close range. Now, nobody is raking each other. We're at short range. Everybody's going to hit on a 3-up. Explosions on a 5-up. The Americans have a slight advantage. Rolling 5 dice for the Americans, 4 dice for the British. No re-rolls. Hitting on a 4-up. The Americans get 2 hits on the British. The British get 1 hit on the Americans. The Americans have a hull of 3. They will negate on 6s. They get no negation. Oh, they didn't negate the hit. So the Americans take the 1. The British are going to have a hull of 6. They didn't negate any. So the British take 2 damage. The Americans take 1 damage. And with 1 damage, it's going to be disrupted. The ship gets an anchor token. And with 2, the ship gets an anchor token. So all of that Sturm and Drang, sound and thunder, fury and drama, and the only result is an anchor token. That is the end of the turn. Let's take a look at the weather gauge for this next turn. One of the difficulties that the British have now is that, oh, look at that. Our fog bank is going to move 6 inches, and it's going to stop right here. Oh, well, let's just go ahead and move it up to the opposite side. So the terrain has all moved, but it's all kind of out of the way. We are back to rolling for our sailing dice. Both ships are going to roll 6 dice, and if you look at it, parallel to the table, the British mast is about a half an inch further upwind. That forces the Americans to sail first this time. And I got it backwards. Remember, the yellow is the British. The white is the Americans. The British can re-roll, but they didn't get any ones. We got to take a look at the... Oh! Right, no change in the direction of the wind. If we put the Americans here, the Americans are going to be reaching. They're succeeding on 4s. The Americans have... No! I take it back. Everybody moves only on a 6. Right? Because of these anchor tokens. So the only guy that gets a movement point is our British. And they are forced to move forward 2 inches to here. And then the wind is off. Oh, baby. We're going to go ahead and turn. Ooh, do we turn them like that? Yeah, I think so. And then we do our sailing dice to see if we get rid of the anchors. Looking for a 6. The British get a 6 and lose their anchor. The Americans are still stuck at anchor. Now for the shooting, we got to take a look. Check it out. The Americans don't have a shot on the British vessel. The British do have a shot on the American vessel, and not only that, but because the mast is within this arc, the British are going to have a raking shot on the Americans, who already have an anchor token. So this is the only cannon fire, and it's going to be a total of 4 dice for the British, hitting on 3s. So that is 1, 2, 3 hits, and then they're going to re-roll this, and that is a miss. So a total of 3 hits altogether. The Americans roll their hull. They block 2 of them. It's only 1 hit. Disrupted, gets an anchor token unless it already had one. Oh, all of that gunnery. And again, the Americans really got lucky on that turn. They are still stuck with the anchor token, but we got to roll for weather effects. All of our weather is going to move 5 inches south. The only one that you can see is this one. This squall moves to here. We are back to rolling for our sailing dice, and once again, the Americans have to move first. Our British roll and get a terrible roll, but they get to re-roll these 3 1s, and it looks like they're only going to get 1 success regardless. The Americans, for their part, are reaching, so they get... Oh, but they're in irons, so they don't get any. The British, then, are going to... Uh-oh, Raggy, they're going to hit the edge of the table, and I gotta pause and figure out what happens here. All right, so we're going to back this up to the edge of the table. We're going to turn it on its stern, and it makes an emergency turn. But unfortunately for the British, they do pick up an anchor token in their desperate efforts to avoid sailing off the edge of this flat Earth. Remember, most of the Earth's oceans are not carbonated, which means it's flat. Anyway, they're done moving. It's already on to... Boy, this game goes fast when everybody's stuck in with anchors. We move on to the shooty phase. And as you... Let's check our angles of attack. Yeah, the British have a target. Yeah, that's good. What about the Americans? Yeah, now the Americans do. We are at close range, so it's going to be a straight gun duel. 4 dice to the British. 5 dice to the Yanks. And we'll see if the USS Diabetes can outshoot the HMS Bad Teeth. Hitting on 3s. 1 hit to the Yanks. 2 hits to the British, except because of this 6, the British have a chance to do 1 more damage, and with a 1 they don't. So 2 hits to the Americans. The Americans will roll 3 hull dice to avoid. The 2 hits, this one gets negated by the 6. Then the British are going to roll 3 dice, and any 6s they missed, so that 1 damage gives... Oh, it's just an anchor token. So everybody's still in anchors. Everybody's still scrambling to try to get their act together. And the wind blows, and everything moves another 3 inches The only terrain I think that might enter the camera at this point is there, and it won't. 3 inches to there, 3 inches to there. And again, I'm just going to wind up moving some terrain that y'all can't even see. We're getting a little bit closer. So the Americans now are up again it, because if they do manage to get out of this predicament, they're going to be sailing into the rain squall. Not a good place to be. Now that we've done our weather effects, we're going to roll our sailing dice. The Americans are going to be succeeding on... They are still reaching. The British are still close haul. So 5s on the yellow, but the yellow get to re-roll the 1s. So the British have an excellent roll. They've got a total of 5 sailing points to spend. For their part, the Americans have a pretty good roll. They've got, well, no, they've got an anchor, so they only get 2 points. Hey, could be worse, right? The Americans are upwind now. The ship furthest, you know, I always forget which way is up and which way is down. The ship that is furthest downwind has to go first. That's the British. So the British decide, well, look, I've got, oh, you know what? They've only got 3 points to spend. Not bad for a ship with an anchor token. We will move them. Do we want to spend 2 points and just come directly into the wind, move 2 points up? Let's see. If we move, hey, look out, Americans. If we move to here and 30 degrees up, taking our anchor token, that's the first. Then the Americans are going to move their 2 inches to here. Oh, and now the Americans are in trouble. They are going to... if they turn with the wind, they can turn up to 90 degrees. And I think they got to do it. And they're going to bounce off the wall as well. That is a 1 point cost because they turn 90 degrees with the wind. Then the British are going to move 2 inches and make the 30-degree turn. That costs them 1. Then the Americans are going to move 2 inches, and I think we'll move them the 30 degrees to keep them off the edge of the table. That's their last point. Then the British are going to have to move. They've only got the 1 point left, and they are in danger. We'll move them up, and we'll turn them the 30 degrees. It puts them headed, close hauled again, but I think it keeps them, it keeps them out of the range of fire of the Americans. They don't have a shot, so there's no gunfire here, but what we can do is make a sailing check for both of our ships, and we're going to roll 6 dice for both of them, looking for 6s. We got a 6 and a 6, no more anchor tokens, and the chase is on, and what a chase it is as we head into the wind. Very much a game of positioning today. The wind is going to blow our terrain 4 inches. Now the Americans are downwind. They are both close hauled. Everybody is going to get sailing points on a 5. We'll re-roll the 1 for the British. So the British have a total of 2 sailing points, and the Americans have a total of 2 sailing points. The Americans are further downwind. They have to move first. They are going to move with both of... They'll move up, and they'll turn 30 degrees. The British are going to... Now, they have to move to their first point. They have to move 2 inches. Then they're going to turn 90 degrees. Then the Americans will move 2 inches, and they will turn a little less than 90 degrees. Then the British can move an additional 2 inches, and I think we want to turn them a little bit like that. Oh, look at that. The British have a raking shot on the Americans. There's your British fire arc. The American fire arc is the wrong direction, and our... it's pretty close. We'll give it... is that a raking shot or not? It's pretty close. On a 1, 2, 3, it is. Hey, look at that. It is. It's a raking shot. The British have a chance to end the fight right now. They only have a gunnery skill of 4, but they have exploding dice. They're hitting on 3s. So they get a total of 3 hits out of the gate. We're going to re-roll these guys, and that's going to be a total of 5 hits altogether. Because it's raking, you continue to roll. So that's 5 hits. This 5 gets rolled again. All right, so it's just 5 hits. The Americans only have a hull of 3. They're going to block 2. The 5 hits becomes 3 hits. The 3 hits is light damage. The ship gets a damage token and an anchor token. And one of the things I often forget is once you take damage, you're crippled. Your gunnery and boarding are halved. The Americans are in dire straits moving into the next turn. They can, at the end of the next up, so we move on to the weather phase. 1, let's see what happens to the weather. On a 1, I think that's bad news for the Americans. I think a 1 means they're calmed. And becalmed means that there's going to be like no movement. And the British are just going to sit there chewing them up. On a 1, becalmed. When the wind is becalmed, all ships get sailing points on 6s regardless of their attitude. No free sailing point. The wind is becalmed until the next turn, in which case it'll stay in the same direction. So, both ships now are going to roll 6s. They're only going to get sailing points on a 6. The British, so the Americans get nothing. The British get a total of 1 sailing point, which they will use to move up 2 inches to here, and then they will turn 30 degrees. And they have another raking shot. But before we get to the raking shot, the HMS Bad Teeth does not earn a token, an anchor. It did move the 2 inches. The Americans have an opportunity to put out the fires. Let me just double check for when you roll for damage control. When a ship has it after its sailing phase, make a discipline check. The Americans have a discipline of 6. Well trained. It's not a great navy, so they are able to remove the damage token. And with the damage token removed, they are no longer crippled, but they still don't have a shot. The British have outmaneuvered them, and the British get to roll another raking shot. They get a total of 2 hits, one of which, it's a total of 2 altogether. 3 hull points. Negates 1, and the Americans have avoided danger once again. The wind picks up on the weather phase, and on a 1, we stay becalmed. Everybody is only getting sailing points on 6s. The British do still get to re-roll their 1s. And look at that. Nobody gets any sailing points. The British pick up an anchor. I don't think they care. Then we're going to re-roll to see if you get rid of the anchor token, and both guys want to for sure. The British get a 6. The Americans do not. So the British get another raking shot against look at that. The USS Diabetes just can't move. They just, I think I ate too much. That is 3 damage points with a possibility of another. A 5 is a 4th damage point with the possibility of another. A 6 is a 5th damage point. It's raking 7 damage altogether. Let's see. None of that is negated. With 7 damage points, catastrophic damage, the Diabetes has... I wanted to ask if you were going to finish that, but I'm just going to lay down and I'm just going to... This was a very interesting naval fight. It was purely a game of positioning. Little bit of cannon fire traded until finally the British were able to work themselves into a position to just keep pouring shot down the length of the Diabetes. It didn't matter that they weren't getting the shots early. If you get yourself into a safe position to just keep raking that other ship, eventually one of your shots will find the magazine, and she's just going to go up like a Roman candle. Bear in mind, this game was really well balanced. If we had seen the Diabetes score a success there and get a sailing point at the end, and the Bad Teeth stuck sitting there, the Americans could easily have rammed the British. I mean, it's not actually ramming, but the Americans could have locked horns with and boarded the British ship. And remember that the American ship has a slight advantage in those boarding actions. Fascinating game. Very historical feel to it. A little bit of hot one-on-one action. If you don't want to play big battles between lots of different ships, don't be afraid to pick up a little bit of fighting sail just to do this mano-a-mano ship-on-ship duel. Master and Commander was one ship on one ship, and it's one of the greatest movies ever put to celluloid. This naval game can be just as much fun one-on-one. I'm praying for you.